Hello everyone, this is Mike with Real Dead, and today we're doing a Q&A with Kane Hodder. We recorded this at the Mad Monster Expo. Due to the current strike with the actors, they would not allow us to video, but we do have the audio of the Q&A recorded, so check this one out.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please give a big Mad Monster Expo welcome, Kane Hodder!
Thank you guys. Hopefully everybody's enjoying themselves, and it's always a fun show to be here, so thanks for coming in.
And it's always a pleasure to have you here, always a pleasure to talk to you. So I have my question I'm going to ask. I'm going to actually jump right in, because just recently, Texas Chainsaw Massacre the game came out.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
I know we talked a little bit about this out here last year. I want to say it was. We had that panel about the game. What can you talk a little bit about the differences in creating that and acting in that as Leatherface versus also previously with Gun Media with Friday the 13th the game?
Right. So when Gunn asked me to do the motion capture for Jason in the game, I thought, that's a great idea. It's a little different process, certainly, than doing film, because, it's instead of a costume and a hockey mask and things like that, it's just spandex, which me and spandex, really the best look. So it's a little strange, but you've probably heard me talk about this before. I didn't realize that they had the technology to, that I could stand on the motion capture stage in that spandex suit with all the sensors, and I could look at a monitor and see myself animated already, live. So I could see what I really am going to look like in the game while I'm shooting the motion capture. So it kind of helped with the performance. And it was kind of a natural thing to do the Jason character in that game. But then, later after that game was done, they said we were going to do another one. And they said it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We started over 3 years ago. And it just came out last week. That's how long the process is, but I think when they asked me to do the motion capture for Leatherface, I was honored because I didn't officially play the character in any of the movies. I did a lot of scenes as Leatherface in Chainsaw 3, but I just figured I'd make the performance as much as I could reminiscent of Gunner, because he was the best Leatherface and he was a good buddy for many years, and so I kind of wanted to honor him. And it's a fun way to work, just because it's so different than film. But very happy with the outcome.
How many hours of gameplay did you film? Like, what's that for those who might not be familiar? What exactly are the details for that compared to how you would play a character in a movie?
As far as the performance, it's not really that much different, other than, as I said, the look. But it's still shot in small segments, like a film would be, and both of them, whether it be film or motion capture, sometimes it's hard to make the performance consistent because you kind of do things out of order very often. So you have to remember your frame of mind when you did this scene a week ago, how you were acting when you do the next scene, which takes place right after the previous one. But you didn't just do it, so it's a little tricky to remember what you were doing, and you have to have some people help and remind you and stuff. But it's it's still fun because as we would say, I'm just killing motherfuckers. I'm being rude, I'm sorry. As I always say, people that curse are fucking stupid.
Now, when we were in Arizona last month, we talked a good deal about your documentary, and I just wanted to go ahead and kind of revisit that again, and also of course, your memoir, your book you wrote as well too. And we've talked about this before, but for those in the audience who might not have heard about it, or maybe might not have even seen or had a chance to read it yet, what was it like for you sitting down when you went to do the book, but also when you went to do the documentary, revisiting the events of your life and your career and mapping out what you were going to tell in that story?
Yeah, with the book in particular, that was the first time that I really told my whole story. Basically, my life story, I guess you could say, all the good and bad stuff. I was a little nervous because, when you play a character like this, you feel like you have kind of an image that you have to maintain as like a bad, scary guy. And you wonder if you should talk about stuff that doesn't necessarily help that image. Some of the difficult things like the bullying things and burn injury and stuff. But once I started talking about it to Mike Aloisi, who was writing the book, I just dictated my story. And he made it into a book, so that's the tricky part. But he also, just like Derek did with the documentary, they both gave me complete control on if something I didn't want to be included, they wouldn't include it. But as it turned out, nothing bothered me. As I told everything and got a response from people about it, it seems like the personal stuff was what people enjoyed the most. The career stuff is fine and a lot of fun, some good stories, but people identify with difficult times, and if they enjoyed the work, they're kind of like, oh, okay, well, I didn't realize he'd been through this and that, and they can relate. So, it was a very cathartic experience just telling my story. I hadn't really ever told it, even to my family, some of the stuff they never knew. So.
And then, was there anything that just because of the length amount, obviously a book you have more, you can tell a longer or larger story than you can in a movie. But was there anything in that you didn't get into the book that time, or didn't get into the documentary that maybe you would explore a little bit later on?
Nothing that comes to mind, really, unless I'm forgetting something we may have talked about before. But, as I started telling everything, it kind of made me feel better to get it off my chest, some of the stuff. So the more I talked about that kind of stuff, the more I remembered and related all the different good and bad stories. So
now, of course, a couple years ago, it was right here in this panel room. In fact, there might have been the other site that we were at previously. We had, of course, a panel with the ghost hunting documentary that you made. Can you talk a little bit about what first inspired you to start exploring the realm of ghosts and supernatural?
Yeah, I mean, ever since I was young, I was always kind of fascinated by the possibility of paranormal type stuff happening, and it was always interesting. I never really thought I would be able to pursue that interest until I started doing horror films, and then all kinds of doors opened where I could go investigate different locations just because of playing the Jason and Victor characters, because it helps a lot. People think, oh wait, that guy does movies I enjoy, and he wants to come and investigate our location. So it really helped, and to be able to go to places that are known for paranormal activity, or supposedly known for it, it's sometimes you have a preconceived notion about what's going to happen. You have to be careful to not let that dictate what you're doing. Just investigate. Don't have it in your mind, well, I've heard this and that, because then you're looking for it and you tend to exaggerate maybe a little bit when you're investigating. So I've always been very careful about that, and if something happens during an investigation and it impresses me, then that's saying something, because I'm very, very careful to not exaggerate. So.
And then, is there any location yet, and this could be anywhere around the world, any location yet that you were, forgive the word, dying to investigate, but have not had the opportunity to yet?
There's a few things. I'm always really interested in investigating a location that has some kind of history, whether it be like true crime locations where horrible things happened, or any location that hasn't been exploited too much is more interesting to me, because then there's no preconceived ideas that you've already heard about. I like going to a place that nobody's ever heard of. What? And see if I can experience something there. I keep being told by people like you guys about locations that nobody's ever really investigated or heard of. That, to me, is far more interesting, because then I like to be, and it doesn't happen very often, but I like to be the only person who investigates certain locations. So.
Well, let's go ahead and open up to some audience questions here. So if anyone has a question, raise your hand up nice and high. We'll go ahead and call on you. We got you right here first.
Well, you had just mentioned places that are not explored. Do you think that places that are like been exploited and whatever, you ever wonder if the spirits are like tired of people coming here, just want to rest in peace, and they move on, and now that place is no longer haunted? Just a thought.
Yeah, interesting theory. I guess that's possible. I never discount anything, but it's hard to imagine spirits would get tired of people coming around, but I guess it could happen. I haven't really considered that before, so it's an interesting theory.
Yes, right over here.
So when you motion capture for Jason or for Leatherface, did you ever come in on a day and you were like, listen guys, I got a good idea for a kill. Do we do it? And then it actually made it in the game.
I wish I could say yes, but gun media and their writers and story people are so good at coming up with stuff, especially violent killing things.
They were very good.
They really were, and I didn't have to add too much of my own flavor into it, because they already, wrote everything so well. And with movies and stuff, constantly adding something to it, but with the motion capture, not much at all. I mean, maybe a couple little extra things like like for instance, in Jason X, when I freeze the girl's head and then smash it. My favorite part of that scene is I put her face in the liquid nitrogen or whatever it is, then I pull it out, and something I didn't realize I did until somebody brought it up later is as I put her head in there, pull it back up, I look at her first and then smash her head against the counter. And I thought that was kind of an interesting little additional thing that nobody scripted. But, you know, I'm sure there's a couple little things I did for the video game like that, but not nearly as needed as during, you know, one of the films.
Cool. Another question out there in the audience. Raise your hand up nice and high so we can see you. Right here in the front.
Hey, with your interest in paranormal, was there anything that happened or you experienced in your younger years that led you to your interests?
No real experience as a child or a younger person motivated me to be more interested in it. It was just ever since I can remember, even at like 7 years old, I was intrigued by the possibility. You know, I think a lot of people that get into the paranormal world do so because of something that happened to them when they were young. And I didn't really have any particular story that I remember. Anyway, it was always kind of a fascinating thing. And then when I started, you know, doing horror films, which I always loved also, and you know, it just seemed like a natural progression. I don't know. There's nothing that stands out. It's just an interest that I can remember as long as I can remember anything.
Another question right here, and then we'll get to you next.
Is there any place as far as across the pond, so to speak, as far as that, like even like old castles or anything like that you would love to explore? Just visiting in general.
I mean, the history of, you know, places in England, and I've been to Sweden and Denmark and stuff, but never really had the chance to visit anything for any length of time. It's always, you know, kind of rushed, and you got a little bit of time to go look at this castle, for instance, but not really enough time to investigate. And I would love to do that more in the future because of the history of some of those buildings and stuff. There has to be stuff going on. And, you know, it would just be interesting anyway, whether you're investigating or not, just to listen to the history of that location. I've always enjoyed that kind of thing.
And then right over there.
When you would get on set and get ready to become one of these characters, did you have a routine or exercise, something to get yourself in the headspace? I assume you didn't walk around normally and you're like, just the physicality you assume, you have a reference to your past?
Yeah, playing like the characters like Jason and Victor Crowley and stuff, and I never really had any kind of routine to get, you know, fired up to do a violent scene. It was just, and you know, a lot of people roll their eyes when I say it, but it was easy to get into that violent mode. And I'm not sure why. Maybe that doesn't speak well to my real personality, but I always found it so easy to go from this and hearing action and going extremely violent. And it never was really a process. I should probably make up a story just so it's more interesting, but I never had to resort to that. I was never against it, but I just felt like I never had to. I could bring the rage so quickly and turn it right back off when we cut that, you know, crew and directors would think, oh, damn, this guy's fucking crazy. But it works. So I'll make up a story one day.
Cool. We go right over there. Are you this? And then we'll get you next, sir. Oh, yeah, right there. Oh, one more. Oh, okay. We'll get her next then.
Hey, so with your paranormal investigation experiences, do you have any experience that stands out to you that really put like the hair on your head, you know, hair on the back of your neck stand up, those kinds of experiences? And where were they?
Yeah, the only one I ever talked about was one of the most recent experiences at Balsam. There's a location where, and you probably heard me talk about this before, but when I do an investigation somewhere, I always like to find out from the people that know the venue the best. I always like to find out whether it's the well-known part of a location or not, where do you feel the least comfortable? And these are people that either work there or own the property or just have spent time in the location. I say, where do you feel the least comfortable? And then they tell me, and that's when I like to go there by myself with, you know, a voice box and camera and on me and shooting out. And that's the only way, in my opinion, to really feel the least comfortable is when you're alone in part of the location that is the most disturbing. And I really enjoy doing that by myself. So, point being, at Balsam, I was walking around talking just by myself in this part of the location. And again, you have to remember, I'm very careful to not exaggerate something. If something happens, everybody wants to have a story, so they sometimes even accidentally make it into something more than it really was. I'm very careful to not do that. So while I'm by myself in this one spot, I felt a little lightheaded and lost my balance for a second. And right then the spirit box said pushed. And I thought, that's coincidental that I lost my balance for no apparent reason, and then it said pushed, which is kind of odd, I think, but that's about the only thing I can really think of that I think involving me that could have been something paranormal going on, because I don't typically lose my balance. And I mean, it could very well have been a coincidence, but it's a pretty good coincidence if nothing else.
Okay, so to sort of piggyback off the other guy over there, whenever you get the role for each character, the Jason, I know there's other actors or like miser actors who embody that character for even off camera. What do you do to learn more about this serial person? Because I know it's not a real person, but how do you know, do research, or what do you do to really prepare for that role?
And I assume you're referring to playing characters that may have really existed?
And even Jason, because he's not really, but just kind of get an idea of how this person would be if he were real or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, with characters like Jason or Victor Crowley, I had a lot of knowledge about the character, especially Jason, because there had been 6 movies before I ever started. So the history of the character was already within my knowledge, and I just thought, I'm given an opportunity of a lifetime to play this character. I have to do whatever I can to do justice to it, because 6 guys before me played the character, so I can't just ignore or discount their performance. I think some people did well, and other people not my favorite performance. So I just tried to add whatever I could to the character, and with Victor, it was just between myself and Adam Green to come up with how the character acts. I mean, Adam was very open to my suggestions, because I told him, you know, I'd like to do this scene a certain way, and if you don't want me to, I'll fucking kill you. And he was like, okay, go ahead, do what you want. But a couple times I played characters that really existed, and that's a little different, because, you know, when I played BTK in that movie, I had to really incorporate what really happened playing that character, and it was kind of interesting, because I'm fascinated by true life serial killer stories and all their backgrounds and stuff. So playing a character that really existed, a little bit different, but ultimately still violent as hell, and I seem to be pretty good at that.
We have time for one more. If there's someone in the back, we haven't gotten back there yet, that has a question. If not, we'll go to...
Yeah, okay.
Hey, Jason. Excuse me, my name is Jason. Kane Hodder.
So you said hello to yourself?
Well, I think the second time we actually had a Passover dinner about 20 years ago in Connecticut with the Appels. But quickly,
With who?
Rita the Appel.
The Appels?
Yeah.
Wow. Which Appel? Do you remember their...
Well, it was Lee, who passed several years ago. Rita, her brother-in-law, which is Lee's husband. I guess you were like boyfriends of one of their, you know, aunt's removed second cousin kind of things.
Right.
So it was that my mom's side there. Anyways, quickly before I forget, who is your least favorite Jason?
Wow. Somebody's trying to stir up some shit.
I didn't forget Passover dinner.
This could get me into some trouble, but as a fan of the Friday movies, which I am, wow, I've never really announced that question. I think CJ did a great job in part 6. Ted White was great in part 4. Ari was okay in the first one, but, you know, played the character for 8 seconds and travels the world now. But it still was a good scene, and I think my least favorite, and it's not necessarily his choice, but the only Friday movie I never saw was the remake, the most recent one. And Derek is a buddy of mine, but I didn't care for how they presented the character. Now, I can't blame him necessarily, but to me it wasn't really Jason. It was kind of like a survivalist in the woods building traps and tunnels and stuff, and to me that wasn't how I always pictured the character. So I would say that's my least favorite, but you know, Derek maybe tried to change some things and wasn't allowed to, so you never know, but I'd say that's probably my least favorite. Thanks for causing problems. You know I have to twist your head off now. Which is not as easy as it sounds.
We'll get one more in here really quick. We'll get you right over here because you wanted to say before.
Will there ever be a 13th Friday the 13th movie?
So I can't imagine they would do 12 Friday the 13th movies and not do a 13th. Somebody has to do it. I think it would be kind of cool whether I play the character or not. And if I never play the character again, you know, it's okay, I would love to, but, you know, people are thinking I'm a little old to play the character now and maybe not quite as physical as I used to be, which is a valid point, but I think it would be cool as hell to direct the 13th movie. If I wasn't playing the character, what other person that has been involved in the franchise as much, besides maybe Sean Cunningham, who else would be a cool idea for directing the film? And I would love to do something like that one day. I'll make that movie violent like you would never have seen in the past. Well, thank you guys for coming in. Hopefully I'll see you out on the floor.
And again, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, Kane.
Thanks, guys.